Good evening, Top fans. Bill from Top Fan Rivalry here once again with my friends, the Westfalls. We got Ned up there in the red. We got Jackson down there in the Atlanta Braves jersey. And of course, me wearing my World Series championship hat. Yep. Yeah, I see the eye rolling right there. I see the eye rolling. I know what's happening. Anyways, tonight we're going to have some fun. It's President's Day, so we had a few people that couldn't join the clubhouse tonight, but not a big deal. We'll get that covered tonight. We are going to talk about predictions, and we're going to talk about how this is all going to play out. And on February 15th of 2021, we're making our predictions for who's going to make the playoffs. Next week, we'll talk about who goes further in the playoffs, but we're going to make our predictions tonight. And we may have some late joiners with us a little bit later on coming into the clubhouse, but we may not. So we'll see how this plays. And we will talk more about how you can find this in a little bit. Let's start out first with our resident statistician, Jackson Westfall. Jackson, any transactions that you want to talk about this week that happened? Anything that surprised you before we get into predictions?
So Mark Melancon and Keone Kela went to the Padres, who seem to have a surplus of relief pitching now. I read that they have like 15 pitchers that they can put in the bullpen. So they're only going to carry about 9, so 6 of those guys aren't going to make the roster.
The trade bait, right?
Yeah, I mean, can never have too much pitching, I guess.
That's true. Tell the Angels that. Tell the Angels that. Ned, was there any transactions this week that caught your attention or want to talk about?
You talked about the Angels. Interesting today, Matt Shoemaker actually went to the Minnesota Twins on kind of almost a minimum deal. And I know that he's been injury prone the last couple of years, and I know that he's up there in age, but he would have been a good rotation guy for the Angels because of the experience and then in the leadership. There's that, and another former Angel, interesting, C.J. Cron. Hey. Well, the guy can hit. He can hit the lump. You laugh, but he can hit the lump. But you know what? If he makes the Rockies roster, Dodgers pitchers have to pitch to him. And you know what? He might be a good pickup for the Rockies. You never know. Playing in that thin air up there. I thought that was interesting. But what's interesting is that, just as we had thought, a lot of moves that have been made over the last couple of weeks. I think, when we said that big shoe was going to drop, and really started with George Springer, and now a lot of these kind of second tier transactions are happening. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, and we'll talk about our predictions in spring training in a second. But where these teams, where they stand now, and where they're going to end up being at the end of spring training, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. What happens when some of these teams too sign some of these veteran guys. They end up being on the roster for like 2 months and then they drop off by the end of May. Another one too was actually one of my favorite guys in the majors was Jason Kipnis. Jackson, I don't know if you heard this, but Kipnis signed a minor league deal with Atlanta, which could be a good veteran guy off the bench. Has the World Series experience and the playoff experience, and he's kind of on the back end of his career, but an all-star caliber kind of. But I wouldn't mind having him coming off the bench for the Braves. Late innings, good late inning replacement defender. So, what do you think about that one, Jackson?
I liked it. It's a good left-handed bat. I mean, his projections they were talking about were above average, but even if he hits league average off the bench, he can play second, third, short, and I think he can play like left field. So I mean, that's a valuable bench piece to have. A veteran guy that knows how to play multiple positions.
Yeah, and even with the DH rule still applying in the American League ballpark, I think that's valuable. It's valuable to have guys like that have that they have that DH thing, because how many times have you seen it to where a guy comes in and he's a DH in the lineup and goes 0 for 27 because he's not used to just coming off the bench to hit. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if he can make the club. Also, too, Pablo Sandoval got, as a non-roster invitee with the Braves, too, as well, which I thought was interesting. So, some of these organizations are going after these kind of these old veterans, these old Grizzly guys that hopefully can propel them to the promised land and knock off your Dodgers there, Bill.
But, it's the low risk, high reward.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's exactly what it is. And but also, too, I think it comes down to economics. As well, and that's what a lot of these teams are striving for as well.
Well, and I understand that the Braves are going to carry less luggage because now they got to put Sandoval on the plane, and there's a weight limit to the charter.
I mean, he's a 3-time World Series champion.
Let's not talk with which team. Now, it's funny that you mention all that, Ned, because that's true. That is, and you see a lot of these guys on the, as you say, the back end of their careers, right? And that's fine. They're on the back end of their careers, but it just reminds me that we still have COVID protocols in place, because 3 years ago you didn't see a lot of these old dogs, getting these 1-year deals. Jackson, to your point, 15 pitchers. If you end up having 3 or 4 or 5 guys that get COVID during the season and have to sit out for 2 or 3 weeks, well, you've got replacement players that can come in and play. So I like the Kipnis deal. I did hear about that today. I like that idea. I like utility guys. I loved when we had a couple of utility guys with the Dodgers. We had Mark Lemke for like a season or two, and any guy that you can get in the infield and outfield, that's a good guy for you. Dodgers obviously re-signed JT, which made me very happy. Remains to be seen. We've talked about this on other broadcasts, but it remains to be seen about Trevor Bauer. We probably overpaid for him. But listen, if he pitches like Trevor Bauer did in Atlanta in the playoffs, I'm happy. But, remains to be seen. I think he's a little bit. When I saw that deal, I was worried that the Dodgers would not cross too far over the luxury tax and give Justin Turner a deal. And he's a fan favorite in LA, let's be honest. So, but I'm happy that Justin's.
Bill, as a Braves fan, I always hate to see Justin Turner come up to bat. He's probably the one guy. I'm honest about this.
No,
he's the one guy in the lineup, right, Jackson?
Yeah.
We watched the Braves and Dodger games together. We'd hey, oh man, when is Justin Turner coming up? Like we weren't worried about Bellinger or Seager, but it was like Justin Turner. The guy's got something. I don't know what
15 pitch at bat every single at bat. It's like, come on, dude.
So it was a good pickup for the Dodgers, but can he stay healthy? I mean, has he had health concerns in the last couple of years?
Yeah, and it's interesting too because he's a lot older than everybody thinks. Jackson, could you look up his age? I think he's 34 or 36. I want to say he's 36.
I want to say that too.
Most people don't realize that he played for the Mets, like before he really kind of shined with the Dodgers. And he's at the tail end of his career. What's that?
He's 36.
36, yeah. Yeah, he's at the tail end of his career, and he got a decent contract. And he and Courtney do so much in LA and try to build LA. So it was good to keep him around. But he is your Dale Murphy for us. I used to love watching Dale Murphy play because he just played the game right, but I hated him at the same time too, because he was always a Dodger killer, right? And as great as he was, and as honest and good of guy he just was a Dodger killer. And so I feel your pain. I feel your pain. All right, boys. Let's have some fun. So pitchers and catchers for some teams have already reported. If not, by the end of the week, they report. By the end of the month, we start having baseball again. But let's talk about the fun side of it. Let's talk about the predictions. Okay, so let's talk just straight out, knowing what we know based on lineups, based on experience, based on everything. Let's take each individual. We'll start with you, Jackson. We'll let you go start in the American League East, go to the Central West, and then National League East, Central West. Tell us your predictions. Then Ned will move to you.
All right, so East, Central, West is what we're doing.
Central, West.
Starting American League?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to pick Toronto to finish first in the AL East.
Okay.
I just think they have a nice mix of veteran talent and good up and coming players. I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is due for a breakout season.
Okay.
I think that'll really help that lineup with George Springer in there with that experience. I'm going to, I wanted to put Tampa Bay in third, but I'm picking them to finish ahead of the Yankees in second just because Tampa Bay, they make these weird trades. You're going to watch. They traded Blake Snell. He's going to turn into Chris Archer. He's going to have like a 5 ERA, and they're going to have like the greatest prospects in the history of mankind like they did to the Pirates. The Rays fleece everyone. So I expect the Rays to be competitive. I'm going to put the Yankees in third. And my explanation for that is a lot of people like the Corey Kluber signing, but Tommy John, and then he suffered a broken leg, I think it was. Coming from, he hasn't pitched a full season in 2 years, so he's a big question mark. And they're getting guys like Domingo Germán back, he didn't play last year. So I think the Yankees just don't have the rotation depth. They have a good bullpen and a good lineup, but again, their lineup is very injury prone between Luke Voigt, Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge. It's how many of those guys can stay healthy? Because I don't think DJ LeMahieu can carry their team for 162 games, unfortunately for them. So I got them finishing third. Got the Red Sox bringing up fourth. And then by default, Baltimore in fifth. Baltimore's not great, but I think they'll have some good, exciting young players. I don't think they'll be good, but I think they'll be entertaining every once in a while to watch. I don't think they'll be absolutely horrible like some other teams.
Speaking of Baltimore, there were a couple. They picked a couple pitchers off the scrap heap too. So it'll be interesting to see if they make their rotation.
Yeah, they have Felix Hernandez, don't they?
And they also signed Matt Harvey to a minor league deal. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see. If those veterans, this could be a move like we just talked about, bringing in these veteran guys, maybe some of their young pitchers. You never know. That's if these guys are on the back end of their career. But I think Baltimore is going to surprise you though. Watch.
Yeah, like I'm saying, they'll finish last, but I don't think they'll be horrible. Like when we head over here to the Central and I talk about everyone below the White Sox and the Twins, I had the White Sox finishing first. I just think they got a better pitching staff than the Twins in general. The Twins do have a very good lineup. They'll come in second. And then going down from there, I got the Indians coming up in third. Their lineup's atrocious with the loss of Francisco Lindor. Their outfield, they're still massive holes. They signed Ben Gamble and Billy Hamilton. That's not going to cut it at the major league level, unfortunately for them.
Billy Hamilton, I think, was a minor league deal too, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, with no sort of production from any of your three outfield positions or your DH position for Cleveland, unfortunately for them, they'll finish in third place. I think the Royals will finish fourth. I think the Royals will be improved. They traded for Andrew Benintendi this week, the 3-team deal with the Red Sox and the Mets, I believe. So that was a good pickup for him, a young, controllable outfielder, kind of the Alex Gordon mold after he retired. Tigers will finish in last. And then the AL West. And, you can make fun of me for this one. I'm picking the Angels to finish first place. It's their year. It's time. They got 2 MVP candidates back-to-back in that lineup. I just think they're going to just out-hit everyone. Houston got worse. Oakland pretty much stayed the same. The Mariners are bad. Texas is bad. The Angels can do what they need to do and beat Texas and Seattle for the majority of the season. The Angels will finish first place because they can definitely beat the Astros. The Astros will finish in second. The A's will be right behind them. Then the Mariners, and then Texas. And then heading to the National League, we'll do the National League East first. I have the Braves finishing in first ahead of the Mets. I just think the Braves have that momentum. They're getting back their ace, Mike Soroka. They were with him one game of the World Series. So, I am a Braves homer, but you got to believe believe in the team that they're only getting better. They re-signed Marcell Ozuna. The bullpen's a bit of a question mark, but I think they have another move or two left in them before spring training really gets rolling to solidify that bullpen. Mets in second place. I think they improved enough. It's all about the lineup consistency. Can hitters like Pete Alonso bounce back? Can they get enough production? Can their bullpen hold it up when Jacob deGrom pitches 8 innings and only gives up 1 run? Lots of worries there. The Nationals will finish in third. I just don't think their lineup has enough hitting. Great pitching staff though. Miami in fourth, and I think Philadelphia will be in last. Philadelphia did not get much better in the offseason. They kind of stayed the same. Well, every other team in the NL East has kind of been steadily improving. Heading to the NL Central, Cardinals, Brewers, Reds. I think the Cubs will finish in fourth. The only reason the Cubs aren't in last is because the Pirates are in that division. I don't think the Cubs are going to be very good. No pitching staff. A lot of guys playing on expiring deals. It's either a really good thing or a really bad thing, where they had the best season of their career, they just kind of fizzle out.
Yeah.
And then the National League West, I will give it to the Dodgers. They'll finish in first place. I think the Padres will give them a fight all the way up till September. I think the Giants will finish in third. they'll be in the mix for a wild card spot for sure. I think they have a sneaky good team. Their general manager's built a really, really solid squad. And then the Diamondbacks and then the Rockies, who might trade Trevor Story before the season's over. So that kind of rounds my list out.
Perfect. Perfect. I love it. I love it. So you have the Cardinals winning the Central?
Winning the Central, yes.
Okay, and then you have the Reds behind them?
I had the Brewers behind them and then Cincinnati.
Okay. All right. I wasn't okay. Perfect. Perfect. Ned, you tell me. Talk to me.
I'm not going to go into as depth of detail as Jackson, but I think I'll give you the top two in each division because I think it's important because then you've got teams fighting for wild card positions, and we don't need to talk about teams that are in the third, fourth, or fifth place, right? Do we? So no one on this call right now really cares about that. So anyway, all right, we'll start on the AL West, AL East. Jackson, I was thinking the same thing with you with Toronto. I think Toronto's going to finish second, but I think the Yankees are going to outslug everybody and pitch just enough. I think the Yankees, it'll be Yankees 1, Toronto 2. How they'll finish in the East. But Toronto's it's going to be a 2-team horse race for right now in that division. Be careful because Boston got their manager back after a year suspension. A lot of people said, but the manager in the dugout makes a big deal. So I will talk. I think Boston will finish third, but that's also to a division where I think they're going to beat each other up a little bit, and they always have, and they always will. But I think it'll be New York 1, Toronto 2. I'm with you in the Central. I think that Chicago squeaks it out over Minnesota, even though I think Minnesota has a better starting five than Chicago does. The one factor that we're not looking into with this long season, and Bill, you touched on it a little bit earlier about the COVID protocols. There's that, and then also the injuries. We look at these rosters and go, these, that's assuming that these guys are going to be healthy all year. So I think that's where the benches and the bullpens and the length of or the number of starters that they have are there. But the White Sox are an up-and-coming team, and they've got a lot of good young ball players with Abreu and Tim Anderson. Out of the American League, they're one of the teams I like to watch because I think they're probably the most exciting. And then in the West, I'm going to agree with you on the Angels, and the reason why I say that is I think all these Angel fans are like, well, you didn't sign Trevor Bauer, you didn't get Garrett Cole last year. That's not what's going to win you a championship. Baseball is a team sport, and it requires 9 guys every night to do their job. And if you have pitchers that are adequate, what I mean by adequate is can go 5 or 6 innings and can shut down the opponents to 2 or 3 runs, 4 runs, in those 5 innings, then they have a shot because I mean, like you said, they're going to outslug them. And with Trout and Rendon, give them a full season. It's we won't even be talking about Albert Pujols at the end of the year because he'll be a non-factor for the Angels. It'll be those 2 guys, and I actually think Oakland's going to finish second, ahead of Seattle and Texas and even Houston. I don't know where the asterisks are. They're who knows. Moving on to the National League East, to Jackson's point, the Braves got within 1 game of the World Series without their best pitcher. So, is that a testament to what they can do, or is that because the Dodgers allowed them to? Who knows? I'm predicting a rematch of. Well, we'll talk about that next week, but I actually think second place. Finish second in the National League East is not going to be the Mets. The reason why I say that is when guys switch leagues, I know it's not so prevalent now, but when guys switch leagues, they have a hard time learning the pitchers, right? And so the pitchers typically have the advantage of the first year. So I think Lindor is going to struggle this year. I think McCann's going to struggle this year behind the plate. You can't buy yourself a championship because that doesn't work. So I actually think that the Nationals will finish in second place. That's my prediction, just because of
Wow.
their pick. Yeah, they've got and what I think is going to end up happening is the Phillies, Mets, and Marlins will all beat each other up, and they'll all probably have kind of the same record. Whereas you'll see those two, the Braves and Nationals always have good head-to-head meetings, and I think it's going to be the same again this year. Central, I'm going to agree with you on the Cardinals. I think to pick up with Nolan Arenado, and with Yadier Molina coming back, and with then signing Wainwright for one more season, I think it was important. Those are all veteran guys that know how to win, and that's really what it comes down to. And then second place in the Central, I'm going to go with. I think I'll agree with you on Milwaukee. I think they're pretty even club. I think Yelich has got to have another bounce. He's got to have a bounce back season. He's too good of a player, way too good of a player to, have 2 seasons in a row with how he performed last year. So interesting too. It looks like speaking of the Brewers, looks like Ryan Braun's not going to come back. He's a Southern California guy, I guess, and there have been some articles about him just he just wants to chill out, and just not he didn't but he's getting up there in age. I think he's 37 or 38. I think he's probably had his time in the sun. So, and then in the West, yes, I think the Dodgers will win the West, but I think the Padres will be right behind them. It's going to be 1-2, and I'm going to predict that the Padres are going to end up winning the wild card. So you're going to have you're going to have a dogfight in the NL West, and it's going to be fun to watch because I know how much love there is between the Padres and the Dodgers, and I know the Giants is a bad word in your house there, Bill, but Padres,
Oh man, this is
you'll
shocking. Some of these,
yeah, you'll be speaking Spanish by the end of September because of the Padres will be getting into your craw a little bit, I think. Wow.
We'll see. These are some different predictions than what I thought. I wrote all of them down. I thought it was interesting what you guys were saying. So here's what we're gonna do now. I've taken all these in, but prior to those of you that are watching this on YouTube, I had let Jackson and Ned know that I had written down my predictions prior to what these boys are saying, so none of this changed it. Okay. Now Jackson went through each team. Okay, and I agree with him with what he said for the most part. Jackson, what are the odds that somebody like Baltimore makes it to the playoffs? What do you think?
I mean, they have Chris Davis, the greatest player in the MLB history. So I think it's a 0% chance. Baltimore not in that division. Not.
Is there a negative percent chance of it? Anyway,
they
sorry,
might be
Baltimore
eliminated
fans,
from contention already.
Yeah, we've got a top Baltimore fan that will be coming on here shortly, and so I don't want to offend too much. But okay, so
I mean, if they played in the Central, they have a shot.
As long as the Pirates are there.
Yeah.
So here's my prediction. I think Toronto's going to come in number 2, and this is my prediction for winning the National League East. And exactly why that. I think that the Yankees are going to bomb everybody out. I think they're just going to hit well enough, and as Ned said, I think they're going to pitch just good enough to make the playoffs and to win that division. But I will tell you, I think Toronto's going to be one of the wild card teams. In the Central, number 2 for sure is the Twins. Number 1, yes, Dave, I said it right here, Chicago White Sox. Okay, they have too good of a freaking team not to make the playoffs. And the way that these divisions are set up, you just beat each other up. I mean, how many games, if we have a 162 game season, how many games do they play in each other's division? I mean, it's like more than
19.
half of it.
I think it's 19 games each team.
19 games for each team, right? So, yeah, it's just, it's crazy. Okay, now, unbeknownst to, and I live in Southern California, everybody, so I'm not a Southern California goober, but the Angels, and I'll tell you why. Okay, and where is John when we need him? I'm predicting the Angels to win the West. Here's why I think this is going to be, why I think this is going to happen, and Ned nailed it perfectly. except for one point. You have Rendon and you have Trout. And those two guys are going to play very, very well. I know we joked about Alex Cobb and other things like that, but I do think you're going to see some production out of Albert Pujols that you wouldn't normally have seen. And besides for that, you have a guy who's a first ballot Hall of Famer. You've got to pay attention to him as a pitcher because he can come up with second and third and 2 outs and be 0 for 4 for the night. And you throw the wrong pitch at him because you think he's old and gray, and he hits a 3-run home run off you. And it's totally feasible. Now, I agree with what everybody else has said. We go over to the National League East. My wild card picks, and we'll talk more about playoffs next week. But my wild card picks: Blue Jays is one, and Oakland is another. Oakland didn't do much to solidify their lineup, but they just know how to win up there. It's a weird thing. I don't know if it's Billy Ball or what, but okay. Number 2 in the National League East is going to be the New York Metropolitans. Number 1, it's got to be the Atlanta Braves. There is no way, shape, or form that the Braves do not win that division unless they fall down and everybody is in COVID protocol and you have to bring up a AA team or a junior varsity team someplace from Atlanta. Then maybe, but nah. But now the Mets did improve, and I agree with the fact that when you change leagues, you got all kinds of different scenarios going on. But watch out for Pete Alonso. I mean, the guy's Superman. The guy can hit a bunch of home runs. So, okay, now the Central. I emphatically disagree with the boys. Okay, I think that anytime you change teams, even when it's in your own league, yet a different division, a different home stadium, a different schools for your kids, you got all kinds of scenarios that you're playing out on it. I don't think the Cardinals are going to come in number 1. I think they're going to come in number 2. And here's my prediction to win the Central.
Wow.
Okay. Those guys proved last year that they just know how to win with scraps. And I think that you bring back Molina, I think that's great. Okay. I think that bringing back Wainwright, that's great. As long as Wainwright stays healthy, as long as Molina stays healthy, we're good to go. Okay. But I still don't think the Cardinals, I think you'll see them etched out. Now, Jackson brings up an amazing point. So if I'm going from lowest to highest, I'm sorry, Pittsburgh Pirate fans, you just ain't cutting it this year. You're going to come in 5th. I'm sorry, Cubs fans, but I think you're going to come in 4th. Okay. 3rd, I think, is the Milwaukee Brewers. With Brian Braun not coming back or possibly not coming back, I don't know that that team has done a lot that has made themselves look a lot better. I just don't. And so I think your number 2 team is the Cardinals, and I think your number 1 team is going to be the Reds. Now, in the National League, I think we're all going to agree with this, right? This is a no-brainer. Notice the World Series champion, Los Angeles Dodgers, right?
We have to hear about it all year. Oh, yeah. We're have to hear about it all year.
But I just don't know how, with a rotation like they've got, how they don't win that division. If Bauer pitches like he pitched last season, and you add Kershaw into that mix, you add Walker Buehler into that mix, you add David Price back in that mix as long as he comes back, and then you add Julio Urias, Tony Gonsolin, and even Dustin May. You've got plenty of strong arms there, and then you've got plenty of relief pitching. I believe that we're going to start possibly seeing Urias become the closer, very possibly, because Kenley's not what Kenley was before, but neither here nor there. In the National League, your wild card teams, and this may not be very popular to this group, but I think the Padres will win a National League or a wild card spot. And I also think the Mets and Padres will play each other in the wild card. I do think the Mets have increased themselves enough. I think the Cardinals are going to do enough damage, as Ned said and as Jackson said, beating yourself up in your own division. I think that's going to hurt the Cardinals in the long run, and they may come in second, but they may not have enough to get that wild card spot. So that's the predictions. I don't know. I mean, fellas, do you want to agree or disagree with me on them? Feel free. Go ahead.
Well, I got a little question for you as a Dodgers fan. Let's say it's, June the 1st and the Padres are only a couple games behind you. I mean, are you, after 60 games in the season, would you be concerned about that?
June 1st, no. August 1st, yes.
Okay.
The Dodgers historically have either started off really, really hot or lackluster mediocre. And there have been times where the Dodgers have started off their first 40 games and they're 23-17 when they should be 30-10, in their first 40 games or first 45 games. And there's times when they start off hot. I'm not worried about the Padres too much until we get to really August, unless we see a lot of injuries happen. Again, I don't know which Trevor Bauer shows up. If it's a Trevor Bauer of 2020 and the Trevor Bauer of the playoffs from last year, I'm happy. If it's a Trevor Bauer that throws the ball over the center field wall because he's frustrated that he gets pulled out, we overpaid for him. So no, I'm not too worried about the Padres yet. And the other thing too that you have is you still have a lot of that core nucleus of the Dodgers team and the championship team that has that experience, and the Padres are still trying to build that up. Manny Machado's got some experience. Fernando Tatis and all those younger guys that they have there, they don't have as much experience. The biggest experience that they have really isn't Machado, it's Eric Hosmer, right, at first base with Kansas City. So to answer your question, no. Now, do I think that if the Dodgers don't stay youthful, do the Padres beat them out in the next couple of seasons? Maybe, but right now I like my odds. I'm going with the boys. So
Well, I thought I'd throw that out there only because it seems once you get to the All-Star break and there's this talk to say, oh well, this team is geared, for the long haul, and we've seen collapses before, right? Of teams, oh well, Jackson, I need you to look something up for me. What was the last franchise to repeat as World Series champions? I believe it was the Toronto Blue Jays.
No, Yankees.
No, it was the New York Yankees.
Yeah,
1999, 2000. That's 20
Yeah.
years ago.
In 20 years.
98, 99, 2000.
Yeah.
So they were a three-peat. So it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be tough for the Dodgers. I mean, they're gonna have to essentially play their best ball for most of the season, if you think about it.
The hardest thing that the Dodgers have to take into consideration, and this is the reality of it too, and this is something that people don't look at. When you go and you play in New York, everybody's on you. Like if you go 0 for 4, well, you're the crummiest player ever. I mean, just ask A-Rod. He started out slow as his Yankees career, but then the Yankee faithful started loving him until they realized that he and Jeter weren't getting along as much as everybody thought. But I mean, in New York, they expect it day after day. In LA, you don't see that much pressure as you would in New York. Now the tides are turned. Now you're going to see a lot of that pressure because they are the champs and they have made so many deals. I mean, on paper, let's be honest, on paper, the Dodgers should win 110 games this season, go 110-52, and breeze right through the playoffs in the World Series, right? But Atlanta's a fantastic team, right? The Reds are still a good team. The Cardinals made themselves better. I mean, there's a ton of teams that made themselves better. And like we've said before, there are some terrible teams out there, right? They just haven't gotten any better. In fact, they've gotten worse, right? Maybe Colorado is that case. Pittsburgh is that case. Philadelphia, Jackson, to your point. But the Dodgers have a target on their back, and they're going to have – and if they go on a 5-game losing streak, people are going to be talking about, is this the world champs? Are these the world champs that we're talking about here? 5-game losing streak? That type of stuff. So, Ned, you got a great point.
Well, I mean, that's what I mean. Like when they go up against these teams like the Rockies and the Cubs and the Pirates, I mean, you expect them to win, and if they lose a series, 2 out of 3, I think as a Dodger fan, I'd be scratching my head going, what's going on here? Why, that's really what I think what separates the champions from everybody else is that you beat who you're supposed to beat, right? And it's the teams that are mediocre are the ones that don't do that, and the Angels have lived in that land for a long time,
18 years.
Yes, 18 years. Yes, thank you. Thanks for reminding me. Yes. But it'll, this is why you play the game, and this is what makes the game so fun. Is because and the beauty of this game is you turn the page and the next day it's here. But like you said, if you're having a bad week, having a bad week for a ball player is losing 6-7 games in a row. That's a bad week, right? That can make or break your season. It could essentially during the I know that they say the games in April don't really matter, quote unquote, but they do. Because a loss is still a loss.
If we had more time, Ned, and Jackson, remind me about this from a status perspective, and I'll try to get a Reds fan on tomorrow night. He was going to join us tonight, but it looked like that wasn't going to happen as the night got later. But the Reds, I want to say, and we'll have to look this up for the next round. The Reds, to your point, Ned, I think the Reds had 97, 98 wins a couple of seasons back and missed the playoffs. And if I'm not mistaken, they had like a terrible April or a slow start, and they missed the playoffs by one game because there was only one wild card team at the time. So if they don't miss a cutoff man or somebody doesn't miss a hit and run sign or whatever in April, maybe they make the playoffs in September or in October, right? So it's to be totally truthful with you, I think my boys are going to win the West for sure. I think that's hands down, right? But from a perspective of where I want to be mentally, I'd rather be in the Braves position. I'd rather be the guys that are so ticked off that they didn't get to the top of the mountain and they were so close mentally that they're going to go after it this season than have like the target on my back saying you've got to win every game.
Well, right? It's not only that, Bill. I mean, Jackson, what was the prediction by Pacoda that predicted the Braves to finish third, right, and only win about fourth. And
82 games.
Yeah, it's like what was that through like 120 games or what? I was trying to figure this out, but yeah, I think that's probably some more bulletin board material for them too to look at as well. And the baseballs too is a game of momentum, and these players feed off each other. And if one guy gets going, the next guy gets going, and it works same on the mound too as well. If one pitcher gets going, the next guy gets going. That's what can make the Dodgers so dangerous. But my concern about the Dodgers would be, if I was a Dodger fan, would be about the health of my pitchers. Kershaw's back. Does Walker Buehler really have a blister problem? Is David Price coming? I mean, like you said, on paper, it looks great, but the injuries always seem to be that one factor. So, maybe we need to start digging into who has the best trainers in the league, right?
Next week, who has the best trainers?
So, and Jackson, you can put some stats together about, who's got the best health rate and who hasn't been on the injured list, So
I mean, I could tell you the Mets are probably in last place. They have so many pitching injuries every year.
Well, but what does that say about your organization, though? I mean, as a player, would you feel comfortable going to that organization knowing that? Maybe that's why Bauer didn't go there. Honestly.
So here's and here's the reality too for the Dodgers and the Dodger fans. What the Dodgers need to do and what they need to do early if they're gonna. I mean, it's kind of like the guy that's gonna fight Mike Tyson, right? How do you get to Mike Tyson early? You let him punch out, right? And you let him, and you just wait, and you get that 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th round, and then you really start landing some punches. I think what the Dodgers need to do is just play their game for a while, right? Let the Padres come out swinging. Let the Padres go 16-4, to open things up. And you go 15-10, which isn't, too unrealistic, or 15-10 and let them go, 18-7 or whatever, which isn't too unrealistic. But let them, can they keep that pace? And then at some point go on a 17-3 run, or go on a 10-1 run, which is possible for a team like the Dodgers, and deliver that knockout punch right after the All-Star game. The All-Star game this year, is it down in Atlanta?
It is.
Yeah, it's down in Atlanta. I think we get it next year.
Nice.
In LA. So, all right. Well, Top Fans, this has been fun. This will be up on YouTube in the next 24 to 48 hours. Please, by all means, do a couple things for us. One, subscribe, make comments if you'd like to do that. that would be fantastic. We welcome those. Also, go to our YouTube page. I'm sorry, go to our Instagram page and follow us on Instagram. We put up different things every day on that page. Also, feel free to like us. And if you have thoughts about this and you want to join the clubhouse, you're welcome to do it. Jackson and Ned have agreed to make room for you. Jackson is our resident statistician. So if in fact you say something that's out of line, Jackson has a gong sitting right next to him and he'll just stop you right there. But top fans, we are so grateful to have you. Have a wonderful evening and we wish you all the best.